Caitlin Clark is driving the WNBA insane. It's to the point that she may need to step away from the WNBA, have a billionaire come in that has the money to prove a point, and say, Caitlin, I'll pay you $50 million just to see if the WNBA can make it without you. Let's go create a complete different league and expose the hell out of the WNBA just to embarrass this Angel Reese girl that Jameel Hill just said she could go down as a Michael Jordan of WNBA.
So here's the situation that just developed. Caitlin Clark is now getting blamed for the WNBA's CBA breakdown by the exact same players and media who spent 2 years treating her like she didn't belong. Word is spreading that she might head to Europe if these negotiations stay stuck in neutral. The league that rode her success to a massive $2.2 billion media deal could actually lose her because they never stopped undermining their own golden goose. The fear you're seeing now, they earned every bit of it. When Clark potentially takes her talents overseas because the WNBA refuses to figure itself out, who really shoulders that responsibility? The veterans who never accepted her or the organization that let it happen?
So the WNBA is taking to social media, taking to the public. And I want to share with you guys the most recent letter that was issued from the WNBA. At midnight, the 2020 WNBA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they've remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations. By delaying and clinging to the status quo, they are jeopardizing the livelihoods of players and the trust and investment of fans, all in the name of preserving regressive.
This is completely uncharted territory for the WNBA, because nobody thought this scenario was even possible. Clark transformed everything about women's basketball viewership and mainstream relevance. But now she's looking at European opportunities that might make way more sense than sticking around for this ongoing mess. League executives are scrambling behind closed doors, and everyone whose paycheck depends on WNBA survival should be losing sleep over this possibility.
It is overdue. I feel like the players have lost sense of reality a little bit, because imagine putting up a rat that a lot of unions do when it comes to like schools, construction companies, people that are making a lot less than the kind of money that the WNBA players are making. They got offered a max salary of over $1 million. Their max salary last year was $250,000, and now it's over $1 million. And then on top of that, the average salary is around $500,000. And then you're putting a rat out in public display. I don't know. I feel like you've lost sense of reality a little bit. That's not the real world. The real world does not want to hear constantly about millionaires' problems.
Here's what's actually going down right now. The CBA talks hit a wall and went nowhere. Deadlines came and went without any real progress. Players keep getting called out for supposedly asking for too much. The union fires back saying ownership doesn't value what they bring. Free agency sits frozen because nobody even knows what the salary structure will look like. And somehow, in all this chaos, certain players and media figures decided Clark should take the heat for negotiations falling apart. This move could go down as the most catastrophic miscalculation in league history.
People were saying, hey, this could be Caitlin Clark's fault. And before I just flipped and lost my mind, I had to sit and think about it. And you know what, Caitlin Clark, this is all happening and it's your fault. You're the reason. Your greatness, your star power, you are the reason for there being no 2026 WNBA season as of now. Because had you not been such a great player and a big star, these women wouldn't be demanding all of the stuff that they're demanding right now. So yeah, I guess technically it is your fault, I guess.
Clark single-handedly brought the WNBA more mainstream buzz in 12 months than it had seen in its entire previous existence. Her games consistently pulled millions of eyeballs. Every arena the Fever visited turned into a sellout. Her merchandise flew off shelves faster than anything the league had ever produced. Networks threw $2.2 billion at broadcasting rights specifically because of the audience explosion she created. You can trace every financial breakthrough the league made directly back to her mainstream crossover appeal. So how did the established stars react to this windfall? With resentment, cheap shots, and physical intimidation that crossed way over the line. Flagrant fouls that got different treatment than they would for anyone else. Veterans complaining about special treatment while simultaneously griping that she was earning too much. The contradiction was mind-blowing. They wanted all the money her popularity generated while hating her for being the reason that money existed.
That the WNBA has hostile players, bro. We all witnessed it during the 2025 and 24 season. These players pretty much hate Caitlin Clark with a passion. And I'm here to tell you right now, the hate is growing even stronger because many people in the Players Association and people in the media is blaming Caitlin Clark for potentially being the one holding out when it comes to the CBA not getting done. Now, the players had a chance to go on a strike.
Now CBA discussions have collapsed, and somehow Clark gets painted as part of the problem. The reasoning makes zero sense whatsoever. She hasn't been out there making public ultimatums. She hasn't threatened to hold out or cause drama. She kept her head down and stayed professional, while everything exploded around her. But when you need someone to blame for your own incompetence, facts become irrelevant. So Clark becomes the scapegoat for labor talks she's barely even part of, while union leaders with clear conflicts of interest avoid any real scrutiny.
Said no thank you to the NBA offering her a chance to participate in their three-point shooting contest. Now think how amazing that is. If I'd have said to you a couple years ago, yeah, the NBA, to save their All-Star weekend, they're going to ask a WNBA player to join the three-point shooting contest to save.
This is where the European angle gets really interesting. Overseas leagues have been recruiting WNBA talent for decades. The paychecks are frequently better, especially when you include housing, transportation, and lifestyle perks that come standard with international contracts. The environment is usually more relaxed without the microscope of American sports media, constantly analyzing everything. Plus, the competition level keeps you sharp while avoiding all the political drama currently destroying the WNBA. For someone in Clark's position, Europe solves every major headache at once. She escapes an atmosphere where veteran players obviously can't stand her success. She sidesteps all the uncertainty from CBA negotiations that could drag on forever. She makes equal or better money without dealing with the hostility she faced all season in Indiana. And she still gets to compete at the highest level while her brand continues expanding internationally through sponsorship deals. The terror this creates for WNBA executives and players makes complete sense. They understand exactly what happens when Clark walks away. Television ratings immediately crash back to pre-Clark numbers. Casual fans who showed up specifically for her lose interest and tune out completely. Sponsorship agreements that were built on growth projections get restructured or dropped entirely. The whole financial foundation that assumed continued popularity crumbles overnight. Clark leaving would reveal just how fragile the WNBA's recent success really was. This wasn't organic development built through collective improvement. This was one individual capturing public imagination in ways nobody else had ever managed. Take away that individual, and you're stuck with a league that mainstream sports fans still ignore. Basic business sense should have prevented this situation. Protect the person driving your success. Don't let jealous veterans create a toxic environment. Call flagrant fouls consistently instead of letting physicality get out of control. None of this required advanced strategic thinking. It just required not actively sabotaging yourself. Instead, we witnessed 2 seasons of Clark getting mistreated while league leadership did basically nothing meaningful about it. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert made empty comments about physicality being part of basketball culture. Officials allowed contact that should have resulted in suspensions in any other situation. Media personalities minimized her contributions while promoting players who couldn't generate remotely similar audience interest. The underlying message couldn't have been clearer. We'll exploit your popularity, but we won't actually respect or defend you. Now that negligence might destroy everything they built. When Clark decides Europe makes more sense, she's not looking back. Once you leave that environment, momentum builds elsewhere and new opportunities open up. Her appeal transcends borders and doesn't depend on the WNBA existing. She doesn't need American women's basketball nearly as much as it desperately needs her. That power imbalance should have been turtle clear from the beginning, but jealousy and short-sighted thinking prevented anyone from grasping it properly. Ownership seems to grasp this reality better than the players do. They're pushing forward with free agency preparations despite CBA uncertainty. That suggests they expect a deal will eventually happen, and they're not willing to let union pressure shut down league operations completely. The status quo period lets them extend qualifying offers under the old CBA framework while negotiations continue behind the scenes. That legal structure gives management more flexibility than players appear to understand. Players assumed they had leverage because of increased revenue and attention levels. But that leverage only works if the source of that attention remains committed. When Clark leaves, their bargaining position disappears instantly. Owners can point to plummeting viewership and vanishing sponsor interest as reasons for not meeting union demand. The entire negotiating landscape transforms from "pay us what we deserve" based on recent growth to "we'll be fortunate if this league survives" without its biggest attraction. Union leadership with Natisha Collier as vice president has made everything worse through blatant conflicts of interest. She operates Unrivaled, a competing basketball league that benefits directly when the WNBA struggles. Her credibility during negotiations is completely shot because of those business relationships. Her public criticism of league management while promoting her own venture has weakened the union's negotiating position. Now her league's ratings are terrible, and suddenly she's trying to sound reasonable and collaborative. The about face is obvious and nobody's buying it. Kelsey Mitchell's free agency mess shows everything wrong with this entire process. She's among the league's elite players and was essential to Indiana's breakthrough alongside Clark. Her situation should be simple to handle. Instead, it's tangled up in broader negotiations that have nothing to do with her individual worth. That uncertainty impacts her career decisions and the Fever's ability to capitalize on their momentum, all because league-wide discussions fell apart over issues that should have been resolved months earlier. The Fever created something genuinely special. Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, Melissa Smith. The talent and chemistry on that roster produced basketball that fans actually enjoyed watching. They reached the playoffs and proved they could compete when everything came together. That energy should roll into next season with roster additions and continued development. Instead, everything sits in limbo because people who should have focused on growth got sidetracked by petty complaints and power game. Making Clark the villain for CBA failure represents the ultimate self-defeating move. She's the only reason these negotiations even matter. Without her impact, we'd be discussing minor tweaks to existing agreements instead of major revenue sharing and salary bump. She created the financial expansion that makes player demands even remotely realistic. And some players respond by making her the bad guy when talks collapse. The lack of awareness is absolutely staggering. That tweet about Clark potentially causing the WNBA to collapse isn't even unrealistic anymore. When she heads to Europe and viewership crashes, the financial foundation supporting league operations crumbles. Television contracts get renegotiated downward. Sponsors pull back their commitments. Teams return to losing money consistently. Everything could unravel rapidly once the growth driver disappears. That's not Clark's responsibility. That's organizational failure by people who should have understood better. How Clark was treated will definitely be remembered and documented. ESPN will eventually make their documentary about how the WNBA had its biggest superstar ever, and somehow created conditions so poisonous that she considered leaving. How veteran players met success with bitterness instead of appreciation. How union leadership put personal business interests ahead of collective goals. How league management failed to protect their most valuable commodity. It'll become a textbook example of organizational dysfunction and wasted potential. Europe represents escape from all that toxicity. No CBA politics. No resentful veterans throwing cheap shots. No media narratives questioning whether she deserves recognition for growth she obviously generated. Just competitive basketball in environments with players and organizations that genuinely want her present. The lifestyle advantages are substantial as well. European clubs typically provide housing, transportation, and amenities that make life comfortable and stress-free. The atmosphere is more relaxed without constant media tension that comes with being America's most controversial athlete. The financial comparison is more nuanced than it seems. WNBA salaries hit artificial caps, but European deals can be extremely lucrative, especially for marquee players. Factor in benefits and lower living costs in many markets, and total compensation often beats what American teams can offer under current restrictions. None of that depends on negotiations that could continue for months or years. European organizations can present clear offers immediately without uncertainty about future salary frameworks. Clark's endorsement portfolio already dwarfs her WNBA earnings anyway. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, those partnerships continue regardless of where she plays professionally. Her global brand might actually accelerate playing overseas because it establishes her as transcending American women's basketball. She becomes an international icon rather than someone limited by one league's problem. That perception shift could prove valuable long-term for post-career opportunities. The panic spreading through WNBA circles is completely warranted. They're discovering that the growth they celebrated might have been temporary rather than sustainable. It came from one person's influence, not from systematic improvements or group achievements. Remove that person and you're left with a league most people still don't follow. That truth should have been apparent, but denial runs deep when facing reality means admitting major mistakes. Management understands this dynamic better than players seem to. They're not panicking about union pressure because they know their position strengthens considerably if Clark leaves. They can reference collapsed ratings as justification for refusing player demand. They can argue the union overestimated its strength and destroyed the value it was trying to claim. The negotiating balance completely reverses once the catalyst for recent growth removes herself from the situation. Players who spent 2 seasons resenting Clark are about to learn an expensive lesson about attacking your meal ticket. Their earning potential exists because she brought attention and investment into the league. Their leverage in labor talks relies on sustained growth she produced. When she leaves and everything falls apart, they're the ones facing the biggest consequences. Clark has multiple options in international appeal. She'll land on her feet regardless. The veterans whose livelihoods depend on WNBA stability are the ones who should be panicking right now. You can already see the regret starting if you pay attention. Players who downplayed Clark's impact are quietly admitting that viewership dropped significantly in her absence. Media figures who criticized her are concerned about whether casual fans will return if seasons get delayed. Union officials are realizing their negotiating strength wasn't what they imagined. But acknowledging errors requires humility that hasn't surfaced yet. The fear is real because they finally comprehend what they stand to lose.